First of all, I have to say really briefly, I'm really mad Generation got canceled.
Oh,
What a
oh my goodness.
what a beautiful queer beacon that thing was, and I was just like, I distinctly remember like it makes no sense. Everyone loves the show. Why did they cancel the show? So, I'm a fan. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Of course.
Um,
Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that.
of course. Um, I don't typically ask this, but I feel like this show it really sort of sucker punched everybody in terms of this is like a true what I mean we used to call like a water cooler show. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess I just wanted to know from you what this I mean the ride is still going, but I wanted to know what the ride has been like because it's been I feel like I've had a lot of really great conversations about the show that I haven't really had in a long time with a show like this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I got on this ride 2 years ago.
Mm, okay.
um, so I think I had an experience reading the scripts and then getting to be a part of telling the story that is maybe similar to what people are experiencing now, watching it. And so it, to me, it really just feels like a continuation of that whole
Mm,
journey. But it's
mhm.
also different, right? Because I filmed starting in 2022 and then we wrapped early
Oh, wow.
2023.
Okay.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
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 Um, but then we were still doing ADR over the summer, and then I did the Spanish dub
Mhm.
for my character, and then I did the Spanish dub again
Mhm.
because of a technical error, and so I did kind of still have that door open to
Mhm.
Terry and to the story, and really not until I finished the Spanish dub in like March, I think like a few weeks before the
Wow.
show came out, that
Oh
we
god.
finally finished, that I finally, and I could feel it the moment that I did the last line,
Mhm.
where I was like, oh, okay. Like
Oh.
now it's done. Now I can, let close that door.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting that now everybody else seems to be kind of on their own journey with the series. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, been there.
Mhm.
I know how you're feeling.
Like, thanks for showing up, everyone. Let's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's so I don't know, I can't really articulate like, I watched the majority of this in like a day and then I actually had to tell myself, I was like, you need to stop watching it, not just because like I didn't want to I wanted to savor it a little bit more, but it was also just like there's a lot of intensity obviously that that is still very vivid in my brain that as a viewer I feel like and every viewer I'm assuming is different unpacking all of these things that I did not know that the show was going to go in that direction. So I think that's why a lot of people are just so latched onto it.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
I love one of the first lines that Teri says to Donny. It's a very relatable line where she says, "You're so weird. I like weird. We're all varying degrees of weird, aren't we? Pretending to be human." Um, I don't know why that stuck out to me so much. Maybe because I've always just been this like weird, strange little gay kid with a weird energy, and it made me wonder what kind of men did Terry date before Donnie came along?
Mhm. I think that I just want to say real quick, I think I've maybe said something like that line to
Yeah,
somebody on the date. Like it is
yeah,
a very that is a trans woman on a date with a bisexual man. Like
hmm
that is what that line is, you know.
okay,
And yet it's also so relatable, and I think so many people maybe. have felt weird, or can appreciate what makes everyone unique.
Hmm.
But uh, there is something that got cut in the edit that does tell us a little bit about the types of men that Teri has dated before Donny. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of what you would expect in terms of a trans woman experience.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Trans woman's experience dating in the year 2015, 2016. I think she's dated a lot of men who were deeply, deeply ashamed of their own attraction to her and their own sexuality, and would not be in public with her, would not pursue actual committed and meaningful relationships with her. Um,
Mm.
there is the, I think she says there was this man once who like really wanted to like wife her up,
Mm-hmm.
um and she did not pursue that because she didn't feel that kind of love connection with him. She didn't
Mm.
feel the kind of spark that she feels with Donnie, and I think that also feels like a very classic experience for a trans woman, is that there are people who will be very happy and giving in a relationship with a trans woman.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that our society oftentimes creates so many barriers to healthy relationships between trans women and cis men that those options are actually very limited
Mm-hmm.
and do not always align with who's actually attracted to us and
Mm.
who we're attracted to in return.
I sometimes I've joked about this. I don't even remember what context it's been in, but um I remember at some point in the last couple of months even making a comment about how sometimes I think straight, curious, cis men are so much more self-conscious than they let themselves on, because it's even in the dialogue, like in his voiceover he says like Teri's the woman of my dreams, and it's sort of like it's I want to shake him. It was like, this is exactly who you want. Stop it. Cut it out. And you feel like, you know, strong feelings like that and a loving feeling like that should really set you free in a way, and you need to respond to that in kind. And it's really yeah, there were multiple times throughout the season where I was like, cut it out. Have this
I
perfect woman in front of you. Stop it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the series really shows us the devastation of patriarchy and
Mm,
and and how that has been disastrous for men in their mental health and in their emotional
mm,
well-being, in their access to true safety.
yeah.
um it's devastating.
Yeah. Well, okay. Um, I wanted to talk about the sequence that starts at the comedy club, and I kept thinking about the difference between how Teri can see the messages scrolling through Donnie's phone and sort of the idea of Martha and looking her up and sort of having her as a distant thought or entity, but then seeing
Mhm.
Martha in front of her,
Mhm.
I could almost like feel Teri's heart beating like faster. And you folks are in different areas of the space. And then I think what's really interesting is that the script, whenever you go backstage and it turns almost into this chase, the energy spikes, you guys feel that buzz and connection, the flirtation between you starts to bubble again before that incident in the in the bar, like you have a line when you both sit down where you said, where you joke with him, I don't want to be seen as the shit comedian from the show. That like jagged humor is so amazing. And I guess I just wanted to know, um, thinking of her and worrying about Martha as a person versus like seeing her before that horrible blowout happens. I guess I just wanted to know what you can tell me about how that feels for Teri. Sorry, very long-winded question.
No, no, I appreciate the question much. Um, I think that we filmed out of order, so I believe that we had already
Oh.
filmed the attack and the fight scene before the comedy club scenes.
Mhm.
Um, and so in a weird way, it's almost like Teri then has this anticipation
Mhm.
of violence. She has this anticipation of what's going to happen because like I had already experienced it.
Mm.
um uh and so I think it worked in
Yeah.
this weird way to kind of film them out of order. um but the sort of actor's task when we were doing the comedy club scenes was that none of the information could be filled in for
Mm.
Teri. None of the story could be filled in already because Donny has not been telling her everything. And again, she's never met Martha. And it's this thing where like it's so hard to understand what Martha's like. And
Mhm.
she's confusing and she's kind of charming and funny and
Yeah.
like and especially in the comedy club scene, she's now presenting this narrative where she is being apparently stalked by Donny.
Mhm.
And so for Teri coming into that after months of no contact with Donnie,
Yeah.
and this very tumultuous breakup that they had, it was about Teri just like trying to follow the plot and trying to piece everything together.
Mhm.
And and so then it obviously brings her back to Donnie because he's the only one who can help her kind of put all the pieces together.
Mhm.
But more than anything, I think it's just she finally, I think, sees how vulnerable he is to Martha,
Yeah.
and and how serious of a risk Martha is. Because as much as Teri has wanted to help and wanted to give great guidance
Sure.
when it how Donnie's dealing with the Martha situation, I don't think she understood at all how serious and how volatile Martha until she sees her.
Yeah, there's a couple of moments when Martha barges into a good number of spaces that I personally I felt myself go like this because I was just the way that uh Jessica can present that volatility like just through
Mhm.
my flat TV screen. I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And I can't
Mhm.
imagine what would be like
Mhm.
for a character like Teri who might, if she sees something brewing, that she would automatically physically step back in order to keep
Yeah.
herself safe.
Well, can I tell you, the none of the background actors knew what was happening.
Oh my God, really?
Which, because I don't know if it's different in the UK, but they did not receive scripts. They, I think, only
Oh
had
wow.
the log line, and so I also was the only person in the audience that kind of had any idea of what was happening, and nobody told the background actors either that I was like in the main cast and
Oh
that
my
we had the
God.
story, and so all of that sort of performance of like being in the audience and looking at Martha, like,
Yeah.
and everyone's kind of looking at each other, like trying to figure out what's going to happen. Like a lot of that really, in some ways, was real because like people in the room did not know what was going to
Oh wow.
happen. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's Oh God, I would not know what I would do if I was just a background actor sitting at a table thinking I'm gonna watch a comedy show and then that scene
I mean,
shows up.
I think people knew what the show was
Right,
about, and but
right.
I know that a couple of the background actors thought that I was the stalker, because
Ah,
we had
okay.
just done our scenes, and like it was the people who were my Teri's friends.
Yeah.
Um, they actually thought that I was the stalker, and
Oh.
yeah, it just worked. It worked
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't have all the information.
Okay. I I did sort of want to ask about Teri's patience because there's the first line when I mentioned those emails that she's going through, the first line that you have is she's clearly unwell. And
Mm-hmm.
then she sort of always, I mean, she jokes about it at one point when they're in the restaurant when she does the Martha voice. But then I think later when stuff's getting a little messy between her, Teri and Donny, she says she reinforces that she's like I'm a medical professional or I'm a therapist, so like I have to you know keep
Mhm.
my nose straight here. I guess I just wanted to know from you how difficult is that for her to sort of keep that patience, not even just with the Martha stuff, but also with Donnie, who's also going through his own stuff it's
Mm,
himself. Like I, I
mm,
I get an enormous amount of um patience from you. I keep saying patience. I can't think of another word,
mhm.
but there's something about understanding patience um that also alerts to us that she is also really eager for this to work because I feel such eagerness from her to make this work because she likes him so much.
Yeah, yeah. I I think, I really gotta credit my acting coach for kind of introducing this concept to me of having like, flipping a switch,
Hmm.
because Terry does a lot of compartmentalization, when it comes to her own personality and her own kind of feelings about Donnie and what's going on. So we kind of came up with this thing where she flips a switch between therapist mode and uh,
Mm.
and seductive mode,
Hmm.
um, and and so I think when she goes into therapist mode, it's like she just accesses that skill set from when
Hmm.
she's at work. Um, and and so I think what we see happen in the relationship is ultimately, well, she can't be his therapist.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
then also, have the love and safety that she wants out of a relationship. So
Yeah.
but I think for a while she feels like, well, I can just flip the switch and I can just turn that on for this moment, and it'll be fine. Like
Yeah.
that'll be good, you know?
I feel like I know someone who is a mental health professional who's married to someone, and she told me something along the lines of like, therapists have to really have a really sharp perspective so they're not like therapizing the person they're in a relationship with because that's going to lead to a whole
Mhm,
other, completely
mhm,
different road. Um,
mhm,
I guess the last question before I let you go, I guess I just wanted to know how much, or maybe not how much, but whenever Donnie's video is released and it
mm.
becomes what it is, and then everything when Martha is sentenced. I guess I wanted to know since we don't see a lot of you towards the end of the season, how much of Terry's natural curiosity is still checking in with I don't want to say the news, but I mean
Yeah,
he has like a really viral moment. And I
yeah,
guess I kept thinking of Terry like picking up the phone and like looking at something and maybe composing a message and then putting the phone down.
yeah. Well, I've talked about something from the script that we did uh, film and that ended up being cut in the edit,
Okay.
which is that Teri does leave Donny a voicemail a few months after or several months after they've broken up.
Mm,
And yeah, she's seen the video,
mm,
and she wants to let him know that she's really proud of him, and um, I could see that you were really struggling up there. Um,
mm,
but I think like what you're doing is really brave, and she also lets him know that she's found somebody else
mm.
and that it's going well, and that it's probably best for him not to call her back. Um,
Oh, I
but
like that.
but she says, good luck, and I think it was a nice, perfect bit of closure, that I got to
Yeah.
have, and
Yeah.
I think is part of the story in my mind still.
I don't think there's enough representations of how, like, not every relationship has to end, I don't want to say with a happy ending, but I mean, it's okay to show a relationship that affects you and changes you essentially, but then they don't end up together. So
Hmm.
you saying that she says, it's good that you don't call me back because that is establishing some space.
Hmm.
But the message to him is important and that closure
Hmm.
is important. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, well, thank you so much for your time, Nava. I was just so drawn into Teri the entire season, and I worried about her, and I love how much the camera spends like right here on your face. It just feels like it really like steps us into this intimacy that these two characters have. And I think your work is really great. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you so much. It's great talking to you.
me
I
too.
appreciate it.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.